Hey guys, this is Jersey Frank back with another video, and we're going to talk again a little bit more about understanding music in 30 minutes, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. Today we're going to talk about chords. We're going to talk about how we get them. Now, we did that in the first video in terms of basic major and minor chords, but here we want to talk about almost every chord, from the simplest chords in rock and blues and country music all the way to the most complex jazz chords. And I just want to talk about how you build them, how you get them, and take away some of the mystery, hopefully, because a lot of times we look at charts or we look at sheet music, we look at just, you know, chord charts we see and the chords above the lyrics, and we see something like a, you know, G sharp minor 7th chord, or we see a, you know, A minor 7th flat 5 add 9, and it's like, oh man, this is like calculus or something. It's like chemistry, physics. It's not. It's all related back to the major scale. That's all it is. It's all either the notes of the major scale or the remaining 5 notes surrounding the major scale. There's only 12 notes, remember. 7 notes in the major scale, and the 5 that we're not using in that major scale can be added to chords that we've built off the major scale. Let me even simplify it even more. Take a major chord, which is made out of the root note, the 3rd note, and the 5th note of any major scale or any major key, right? 1, 3, 5 notes, you make a major chord. You can add either more notes from the major scale into that chord, or notes that are not in the major scale to that chord to give it a more dissonant, jazzy, kind of out sound that leads back to the more in chords. And then when you solo around those chords, you simply add the notes that you've added to the chord to your soloing notes or your melody notes. Okay, you don't have to do that. You can dance around it any way you like. But generally, if somebody is playing a, say, for example there, major 7th chord, well, we're adding in, and we'll explain this as we go, just giving an example here. Playing an A major 7th chord here, and the major 7th is this G sharp. So that G sharp has now found its way into the chord. So when I'm soloing, I want to make sure I add that note in, right? And add that flavor, because that note is the 7th of the A major scale. It's not in the major chord unless I add it in, which I've done now, to make it a major 7th chord. So I guess what I'm saying in a nutshell is all 7 chords that are built off all 7 notes of the major scale. Remember, each of the 7 notes of the major scale gets its own chord. Okay? And let's go back to that for a minute. So, you'll remember this from video 1. Each one of these notes got a chord. We said the first one is a major chord, the second is a minor, third is a minor, fourth is a major, fifth is a major, sixth is a minor, 7th is really a minor 7th flat 5, we'll talk about that, and then back home to the 1, to that A chord. Okay? Why is the first major, the second minor, the third minor, etc.? Here's why. Because we're building that root 3 and 5 that's giving us each chord off of the notes of that one major scale, of the key that we're in. So watch this. The first chord we're going to build is A major, out of the A major scale. So we take the 1, the root, the tonic of the chord, the lowest note in the chord, the one that's giving it its name, and from that 1, we add the 3, the 3rd interval away, 1, 2, 3, right? And then we add the 5, and we get... We put those all together in a cluster, and we get that. Now, if we go to the second note of the A major scale, which is B, and we build another chord, we're going to build a chord now off the 2nd degree of the major scale. When we look at its 3rd one up, 1, 2, 3, because remember, we're staying in the key of A. We count up B, C sharp, D. D is now the third note away from this new tonic, this new root. 1, 2, 3. So there's our new third. And when we were doing it from A, 1, 2, 3, the third note up in the scale was C sharp. Now when we're doing it from B, the third note up is D. What's the fifth note up? Well, remember, we're staying in A major. We're not playing in B major here now that we moved to the B. We're staying in A major the entire time through all 7 chords. So we're only playing with these 7 notes. We're just shifting them around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back home. So now we've got 1, 3. So if we continue up, B, right? C sharp, D, E, F sharp. That's our fifth. So now we've got B, D, F sharp as our 1, 3, 5. Here we had A, C sharp, D, E, sorry. Now we've got, now notice that the third here is a minor third, right? Because it's only 1, 2, 3, 4 steps away from our root. 3 steps away from our root. That gives us a minor third. Here we had 1, 3, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I blanked out there for a second. 1, 2, 3, and we have a whole step each time. Whole step intervals. Here we have a half step, which means we have that minor third sound, that flatted third, right? Rather than. So when we see a flatted third or a minor third like that, we automatically know it's going to be a minor chord that we're building, right? And there's our 5. So we get this B minor chord. That makes the second chord minor because the scale demands it. Because remember, we're only using the 1, 3, and 5 of each new root as we move around, sticking with those same 7 notes. So 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5 from A, then 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5 from B, then 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5 from C sharp, then 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5 from the D, and so on. Now, why are the 1, 3, 5s changing? Sometimes minor, sometimes major. Because that's what these 7 notes demand as we keep on climbing up the scale. So the 1 and the 3 from A is this distance, and the 1 and the 3 from the B is this distance, because we're just using the same notes. Right? So we go up to this, now we go up to C sharp, and we count up to its third. Right? C sharp, D, that's in the key. So that's our next note. What comes after C sharp in the A major scale? Right? C sharp, D. Right? So here they're only a half step away. So C sharp, D, E. E is now our third. And that, again, it's 3 steps away from our C sharp, so it's a minor third rather than a major third away. So now we have A major as our 1 chord, B minor as our 2 chord, C sharp minor as our 3 chord. Because the scale demands it. If we go to our D, which is the next one up, what's our third away here? 1, 2, 3. Well, we see that it's a major third away. It's F sharp. That means that this D chord is going to be a major chord because our third is a major third away from the root rather than a minor third. So our D chord is major. So is this chord, our 5 chord. So is our 6th chord is minor. Our 7th chord is minor 7 flat 5. Same way we flatted the 3, we flat the 5 note now, right? So let's go to A. If we took the third of the A and we flat it, it's going to give us an A minor chord. What if we flat the 5? 1, 3, 1, flat 3, 5. Now we got, rather than of the major chord, we've got, so we've got a flat 3 and a flat 5, giving us a minor chord because of the flat 3, right? It's a minor 7th, flat 5. Now it's a 7th chord with the G in it, and we'll get to that in a little bit. The minor 7th in a chord is a flatted 7, just like a minor 3rd is a flatted 3rd. So in A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, G sharp, we flat it to G. So now we've got, so we got our root, our flat 3, our flat 5, and our flat 7. Right? That's a minor 7th chord. And we add the flat 5 in there, we get this. Listen. Very jazzy chord, minor 7, flat 5. You'll never see that in pop music, generally speaking, or rock or blues or country. That's why I usually say in rock or pop we wouldn't make that a minor 7 flat 5 chord. When we use the 6th chord, 7th chord, we would make it a simple minor chord, right? So we're playing an A. Just keep it a simple minor chord. And see how it comes home to the 1? It resolves. Now, a lot of these chords I'm going to show you as I go through, a lot of the real dissonant sounding chords are tension type chords. And they're really devised to build up tension, create dissonance and tension, leading back to the 1 chord. Leading back home. Right? For example, home. So we got this kind of diminished chord here. So let's run through the chords and see how simple they really are. We've got to now watch this. We've got a major chord. All that is the 1, 3, 5 of the major scale. We've got a minor chord. The 1, the flat 3, and the 5 of the major scale. Okay? 7th chord is a major chord adding 7 in. We only have 1, 3, 5 in the major chord. But we're going to add the 7 in. 5, 6, 7. We're going to put that in the chord, right? So then we get, no, sorry. We'll add it up here. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. G sharp, right? So we look for a G sharp to add into the chord. Here it is. That's one way to play it. All we're doing is adding the 7th note of the scale into the chord. That's how we get a major 7th chord. If we want a dominant 7th chord, then we flat the 7. So we had the G sharp, we flat it to G, we add that G into the chord. Now that's a dominant 7th chord. Here's our 7. Here's our dominant 7. Right? That's it. It's simple. We're just adding notes of the major scale in, or sharpening them or flattening them. And that's one of those notes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Flat it. That is, I said before, not in the scale. So we're just taking notes from around the scale now, sticking them in our major chord, seeing how we can make them sound. That's all we're doing with any chord you've ever heard of. We're taking notes out, we're putting notes in, we're sharpening notes, we're flatting notes, we're taking notes that are in the scale we're playing in, and we're taking notes that are not in the scale we're playing them in, and we're adding them into the chord. So we've got major, minor, okay? We've got major 7, dominant 7, which is a flat 7, right? Now, if we move this pinky down again, we get a 6th chord. Now, how do you suppose we got the 6th chord? We took the 6th note of the scale and stuck it in the chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. F sharp. So we played our A chord, and we're going to look for an F sharp, right, which is right here. we're going to stick it in our major chord. Now we've got a 6th chord. So we got a 6th, we've got a dominant 7, we've got a major 7. Just by messing with our pinky. If we took the pinky and we moved it up here to that B note, we've got a 9th chord. So we're just playing with a major chord. That's it. We're going to add now the 9th in. Now the 9th, this is where it gets a little tricky. Hang on here. You said, well, there's only 7 notes in the scale. How in the world are we adding the 9 note in? Where's the 9? Well, the 9 is the 2nd, just an octave up. That's the 2nd. That's the 2. It's B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, up an octave. Playing it higher. Right? Gives us B. There's a high B up here. So we use it up here. Now watch this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Gives us the high B. So we add the higher B into our chord. We get a 9. Same with an 11 is really a 4. 13 is really a 6. Just up an octave, right? Up an octave from the 6th. We'll see that in a minute. Now you said, oh, but when you played the 6 before, you didn't call it a 13. Well, depends on the context. That's why music gets hairy. But who cares? What you do, move your fingers around, stick notes in, and see if you like them. If you don't like them, take them out. I'm just trying to show you the generally, I'm trying to show you how chords are built, so it takes away the mystery. Now, I can't get into every single chord ever built and why, but I want to give you the general idea here, right? So you have a major chord, 1, 3, 5. You have a minor chord, 1 flat 3, 5. Right? You've added the 7th into the chord. So you've got a major 7th chord. There's other ways to play that. I'm just showing you one way. You've added a flat 7 into the chord. Now you've got a dominant 7th chord. You've added the 6th into the chord. Now you've got a 6th chord. You've added the 9 into the chord. Now you've got a 9 chord. Now you notice when I have to grab this 9 up here, the B, with my pinky, I've removed it here from that note, which was simply the octave of the root. Right? And now I've left this note in its place. So this is the flat 7. So it's a 9 chord here, but I've got a dominant 7th note in there, or a flat 7th note. If I don't like that note, I can hide it. I can figure ways to hide it. Just don't play that note. Okay? Some of you have heard of the suspended chord. One way to play a suspended chord, or one type of suspended chord, is taking the 3rd out of the chord completely and putting a 4th in there instead. So you're suspending the 3rd, putting a 4th in there, right? So a major chord is 1, 3, 5, but we're going to use 1, 4, 5 instead, and we're going to end up getting this sound. Instead of, we've got... And that almost sounds like an ending to a song. Here's the 4. Home. We'll see that a lot. We're just shifting that pinky. Now that suspended chord doesn't sound like home. A is, let's say I'm playing E, 7, and I'm going to go home to A major. That works. Now I'll play E7 and go home to the A suspended chord. Won't sound like home. Doesn't sound like home anymore because that 4 is creating tension, where the 3rd sounds like home. So these chords all obviously have different sounds. Let's look at the 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. What note is that? E. Well, E is the 6th note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, watch this. Let's call that a 13 instead of a 6. Right? And let's sharp it. So we'd call that A sharp 13. Right? Or A7 sharp 13, because got that flatted 7 in there. A7 sharp 13. We can flat that 6th. That note is not in the chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's an F sharp. I think I said E before, but it's an F sharp note. We flat it to F. Now F is not in the key of A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. F sharp is the 6th. That note is not in the key. But what if we put it in our A chord anyway? Right? So here's F. What if we could do it like this? Great tension chord. Very jazzy. Very different from the A major chord. Okay? Augmented. Augmented simply means you're sharping the 5th or raising it 1 half step. So here's our root, here's our 5. Sometimes rock guys just play those 2 notes. Here's our 5. Let's raise it. That's an augmented sound. We're just, in the chord, we're sharping the 5th. If we lower the 5th or flatten it, we get a diminished chord sound. Flat 5 sound, watch. So here's a perfect 5th or a major 5th kind of sound. Augmented. Major, perfect 5th, diminished. Flat 5. Now if we flat the 5, we flat the 7, and we flat the 3, we get a diminished chord, right? We double flat the 7. We get a 6th. So it gets complicated, but it isn't complicated. If I screw up here, because I'm talking quickly, you'll still get the point. And the point is, you're taking notes from the major scale and adding them into the simple 3-note major chord or 3-note minor chord. And you're adding other notes from the scale into the chord. That's all. That's how you're getting your chords. Or you're taking notes that are surrounding the notes of the major scale, but are not in it. They're not in the key. And you're adding those into your chords anyway, even though they're not in the key, for tension, for color, for flavor. And then when you solo, you simply make sure you add those notes that you're adding to your chord into your lines as you're playing, so that you can accentuate them in the chord. For example, here's A major. Let's play A9, right? So if I'm soloing, I want to make sure I add this B note because it's now in my chord. So I'd like to accentuate that on my line. I'm going to accentuate that 2 or 9. Right? Same thing if I'm playing a major 7 chord. Right? Now I've got this G sharp in there, which is our 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, G sharp, right? So emphasize that note. Now, when I play the note, you can hear it in the chord better. Watch. It's not in the major chord. There it is. Still sounds good, but it's not in there. Okay? So what if you have a chord like A major 9, sharp 11? Well, you'd add the 9 into your A major chord, and then you'd look for the 11, which is the 4, an octave higher, and you'd sharp it, which is really the same as a flat 5. Here's the 4, sharp it. Here's the 5, flat it. You're still getting that note. Okay? That's why people get confused at times. The nomenclature, the names, the terminology screws people up. but it's all built off of that major scale.